All right, we're live. Welcome to the Oil and Gas Pitch Podcast. Before we get to my guests, I have a couple announcements to make. I am here at the Churrasco's restaurant. I want to give them a shout out. As you guys know, I put a lot of support out to Churrasco's. They are our partners in where we're doing our lives and our videos. So shout out to Churrasco's. If you ever mention OGGN to the restaurant, you're going to get a free tres leches. It's something you got to check it out. If you've never been, come here. There's several restaurants around Houston. You definitely want to check it out. So today's episode could change your life. And I'm excited to listen carefully, learn as much as I can from my guest today. He is a father of two, got his start in the welding trade back in 1998. Ran his own rig from 2006 to 2012, has been been inside pipeline inspecting for the last 8 years, would have been married 15 years till he was served divorce papers just 2 years ago. And what's interesting about all of this is that that's not all that would take him by storm. This was also a financial hit. It was compounded by his heartbreak. There were years of work where he was missing time with his family for so many years that ultimately it led to his kids telling him he was never really there for him. By the way, he says this happens a lot in the oil and gas industry, so I'm interested to learn about that and what his opinions are in that regard. After hitting rock bottom, our guest today found a system within the Men of Iron that helped him pull himself out of the ashes. He says he regained clarity and confidence in a new way after losing it all. This is a man with a mission, and now he is going to share all of this with us. And life today includes coaching his oil and gas clients as well as executives on how to live a more four-dimensional lifestyle. We're going to learn all about that. And he's going to be talking about how we can be putting deposits in all areas of our lives and not just making money. So with that, I want to say thank you, Nick Gemmell, for making this happen. We're going to learn all about the awakened tradesman and what you're doing now. How are you today?
I'm good. Hello.
That's quite the intro. It's like your life story is so interesting to me because I think just across the board, as I learned more about you and these components that you've learned the hard way, right? And you're still in the middle of kind of bringing your life to where we're all trying to maximize our lives. This intro to me was about how do we take a listener right from the very beginning and give them a chance to really know this is not a typical episode of Pitch.
No, and it's not a typical life in any normal people's lives, right? But this is normal to us. It's normal to be gone for weeks, months at a time, and then come home and have to deal with everything that's changed over those weeks and months that we've been gone. And now you compound that over and over and over with all that isolation. Now you can either have something that's thriving if you do it right, or you can end up like I did and having your kids tell you that they don't really know you, even when you were around, which was the hardest part. Like, honestly, like wife leaving one is one thing, but yeah, having the kids tell you that, at 15 and 12, that's another. So
yeah, I mean, as I listen to you, I think about this, and there's people that just go like, divorce happens every day, right? Like there's all these opinions people have about it. Some people even congratulate you when you're divorced, like, oh, congratulations. But the truth is that we all, when you have people that you're surrounded, that you love, you want to give them your time, your attention. What's the use of all these four love languages if you're never even there to provide them? And what I'm excited about your whole concept is that it's not about just saying, hey, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. You have figured out a way to actually implement some different techniques that are taking these people's lives and helping them before the damage, before there's collateral damage, while they can still live in the now and have great relationships with the people in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything that, or a lot of things that everyone's going with COVID is being exposed now, and it translates to how we live every day. The isolation, the being, yeah, just being by yourself and have to entertain yourself in some 10 by 10 box in some camp somewhere, right? Whether it's down in Texas or Colorado, or all the way up here in northern Alberta, right? And we've had some of the clients we've had, right? Wife's been cheating on them for 2 years. Now they're in COVID. Now they're jammed into a house, right? Another client, right? Cheating on his wife for a couple years. Wife find out. Wife finds out. How do we, like, how
Mm,
did it get that bad in the first place? And
mhm.
like in my life, how did it get so bad that I would just disconnected from myself totally to protect myself? And then my wife just, here, I'm done. Like, I
Mhm.
don't even want to do counseling. Like, it got that bad. Like, no, like, I don't, I just want to be separated and divorced.
Well, what I would imagine happens too is like if you're in a position, no matter what industry you're in, where that could be. I mean, think about the airline industry. This is part of it too. You imagine there's weeks where you're together, and there could be weeks where you're not, and it takes a special kind of relationship to be able to master that, to be able to maneuver, and for people to at least know that they're appreciated. Because I could imagine too, like if you're going, even you could be in the world's greatest marriage, but you'd have literally two lives. You have one where you have a roommate that's like, could be causing you headache, could be making life really wonderful too. But then you have that other time where you're just kind of king of the ship and you're there alone. I'm thinking from a spouse's standpoint. It's really very interesting to a lot of us who've never had to endure something like this, that you what your teachings are really about is not that it's the traveling that ruins the relationship, but it's how you're in the relationship that can ruin the relationship.
Oh, 100%. So, what I've, through working through this work, what I've figured out, and still work in progress, but it's all based on facts and feelings. And I said it. I said the two F words, facts and feelings, right? So what dude actually wants to step into the land of feelings, right?
Mhm,
So when you actually look at your results, so what we do when we first sit guys down is we actually, not to give a lot of the program away, but listen, this is what it is. Like, sit down, when you look at the facts in your life, right? Look at your facts of your body. Like, at one point
mhm,
I couldn't even tie my shoes. I was that large. Like, it's taken a lot of work to get to this
mhm,
point, but I couldn't even tie my boots and my shoes. So I would just leave them untied, right? Like, I'm huffing and puffing. I just said, screw it. Okay, so what are the facts in my body? Okay, what was the facts in my being? What the hell is being, for one? And two, like, what is fulfillment? Like, what is that? So most people can't even answer that. So, okay, so no. So now what is the facts and the fulfillment? Well, I don't even know what that actually means, right? And now on your balance in your relationship, what are the facts? So what are the facts? When was the last time that your wife or you took your wife out on a date?
mhm,
Pre-COVID, right?
mhm.
Pre-COVID. When was that? Okay, were the kids there, or was it just you? Well, 3, 4 months ago, maybe, like, I can't remember. Okay, so that's a fact. Okay, what are the facts in your business? Like, what is your balance sheet? I don't know. Okay, well, what was your net last month? I don't know. How many clients did you have? I have no idea, right? So what are the facts? Okay, now that we have that list of facts, how does that make you feel? Well, I can't tie my shoes, so I think that makes me feel pretty shitty, right? I don't know. I haven't seen my kids in 3 months, and when I was there, I just went golfing, or I went to the bar, and I stayed in
Mhm.
the garage with my buddies, and we drank all weekend, and then I was back on the road again. So yeah, I guess I feel pretty shitty about that. Hmm. Okay. And what you find is, once those three areas, your body, being, and your balance, are all in line, you actually start to make more money in your business, right? Whether you're self-employed or not. every one of us has a business. When you go to work, that your home is your business. And most people can't differentiate that, right? The money game is a whole different story. But what we see is when those other people are aligned, and I'm talking about myself too, when I'm aligned in those areas, business comes last. And mostly that's where we default to because it's pretty easy, right? Just go to the office, make more money. Just go to the field. I'm going to work more days. I'm going to make more money. That'll solve everything. And that's where a lot of it falls short.
You know,
So,
as you talk, like, look, there's a lot of women in the oil and gas industry, obviously, and there's men, but you can't ignore the fact that a lot of times men don't want to talk about their feelings, or they have like three emotions. Like I heard there's a whole spectrum of emotions, right?
yeah.
Like empathy, sympathy, sadness, fear. But with men, it's like angry, sad. There's just like two or three that always come to light. And happy. It's like this three-engine machine. When really, um, we do feel guilty, right? Like sometimes we do know we're leaving people out, and we always think like later in life we can make it better. At least that's sometimes what I've thought. Always thought, you know, when I'll sacrifice now for the reason that possibly we can benefit from all this later. But the truth is kids get older. The attention that you get from them as they go through being like under 10 all the way into teens, that's a totally different beast. So as I sit here listening to you, it's really the truth is if you're someone who notices that something's just not in alignment, but no one has ever talked to you about any of the things that you're about to talk about, um, now is the time to really tune in and figure out what's going on and start being really present, not only in your life, but in the life of the people you love.
And that's the message that we send. And it's the more and it sounds really simple, but when you are, not thinking 10 different places, okay, I have to make this permit for next week. Okay, I have to make sure all of these the landowners are notified. I have to make sure that these crews know what they're doing. Make sure, right? When you get home for your few days off, that's what you're thinking about for next shift. How can you be present with your kids and they see it right away? Your wife sees it right away.
Hmm.
And I never even dawned on me when I was home, like when I was married, right?
Are these tools that you've learned, and I know we're going to get into those, but with where you are now, which is so far from where you were, are you finding that your children are reconnecting with you and you're being able to kind of fill in those potholes, if you will?
Yeah, yeah, and it's taken a year and over a year now of consistency. So, um, over last April, I might not have been here. I wanted to end it all. Like
Mm,
it was that far, you know, and I was that far gone, that disconnected that I thought that was my only way out. And it crossed my mind a few times, and then I went to rehab. And that's where I started to learn some of the tools, not for drugs or alcohol.
mm,
They didn't even know how to treat me when I went there. I went to Thailand. I went to Thailand, man. Like my counselor here said, "Hey, like you don't need a clinical treatment. Like you're not addicted to drugs." I was on steroids for 2 years, but it wasn't that's because I was competing in bodybuilding and powerlifting, right?
mm.
So it wasn't about that. I've been addicted to golf, man. I've been addicted to gambling.
Yeah.
Like I've been addicted anything you put in front of me, I'm gonna do to the max. Like that's just me. And I've had to figure out why that is. That's a whole different topic. But in that whole mix of, hey, like you're just disconnected. You're the same as an alcoholic. You're the same as a drug addict. You're just trying to find that connection because you don't have it. So how can we do that? So we went to this rehab facility in Thailand, and they didn't even know how to treat me there. It was called Hope Rehab,
Mm,
and yeah, they had no idea how to treat me. But I'm like, whatever, just get me there. Let's do some mindfulness because that's what they were big on. What dude knows about mindfulness for one, and
mm.
then two, right? Let's do some meditation. And I'm like, I can't even sit for, I haven't been diagnosed, but maybe a little ADD, right? I
Right.
don't know. I'm very high strung. But okay, let's go do some meditation, and then let's do some cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's why my counselor said maybe you should look into this. So, and that's why I love the CBT, and it's just, yeah, again, based on facts and feelings.
Hmm.
And that's why after those tools, once I got back from there from 2 months, and then I found the Men of Iron with my buddy that I lived with 20 years ago. He was starting this movement or continuing this movement that I just kept scrolling over him and social media and finally stopped. And I'm like, dude, that's me.
And you are a certified cognitive behavior therapist, is that right?
Practitioner.
Practitioner. Okay, I'm just trying to clarify because this is something that I think a lot of people will find interesting. That your career is so oil and gas, but you really like unplugged to get this. You really wanted to master this part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just how can we reframe these shitty thoughts in our head? Because they're going to happen anyways. And 60 to 70,000 thoughts that run through your head at any given day. That is a lot. You're not going to catch all of them. But guess what you are going to catch? You're going to catch the really shitty ones more so than the really good ones. That's just the way that the brain is wired, right? It's just the reality. So how can we reframe these stories? And that's how that is a lot of the work that we do. That's a big part. So it's not only based on your, what you want out of life, but how can you just manage through the day and sit there with your kids and not scroll on your phone, whether you're a single dude on Tinder or on Instagram or whatever the hell it is. How can you be present with your kids and your spouse, right? Or
Mhm.
partner?
So tell me, so as you came out of this, here it is, you come back from Thailand, you and your friend start really digging deep into this type of therapy. Tell me like how that goes down. Like where does it go from there? Like you start this and it's not like you flip a switch.
No. So we started the work, and on my own at that time. There was no one else. They were all in their little groups already, like with their coaching, right? And I was the new kid on the block, so I was just doing the work by myself. And you give me a task, I'll dive in and I'll do it. And but in September we do these live events, or they were doing these live events in Victoria, in on the west coast in BC.
Mhm.
And yeah, and that kicked the living shit out of me, and that's what the shakeup that I needed. Um, so it's like we describe it as like a Navy SEAL type event. Where rolling around on the beaches, we're carrying logs up mountains. There's a lot more to it than that, but
Mhm.
basically you're just getting beaten down mentally, physically. And even if a lot of people that came there thought their lives were pretty good, and that was the ironic part, right? They just wanted a boys' weekend out. Okay, let's go do some, let's go fight in the ring. There was some kickboxing as well, right? Let's go fight in the ring. Let's get, and then crush some beers after. And what you found was a bunch of guys at the end of it, like, holy shit, my life really wasn't that great.
Yeah, I hear this a lot where you just know. Like, if you just think about it, people who wake up in the morning, they put they put their towel right on the same place of the shower every day. They brush their teeth at the same time. Like, there's all these habits that we have, and we don't really think about what we're missing, right? You go and you go day after day after day, and it's those behaviors, if you will, that are leaving others maybe behind. And sometimes, I'm sure sometimes when things are extremely stressful, you do self medicate, like through beer or whatever that is, because you don't know, you go from work mode to now home mode. And that's an adjustment. It's an adjustment going from being out on a rig or, away for months at a time. And then suddenly you're back in a, 2,800 square foot house or whatever you got. And there's kids and there's noise and, it's just a shift in gears.
Yeah, and so there's a few things in there. So with coming home, there's been times where I've had to pull over on the way home, and I would get sick. This only happened at least once that I can remember without right? And there was one other time that I thought, but I tried to push that stuff out of my out of my, or shove it down.
Yeah.
Try to shove it down. But actually, like driving home from a 12-hour drive from northern Alberta coming home, and I just did not feel right. So
Mm.
I just pulled over like, what the frick? But I just worked for what it was 2.5 months,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm going home to wife and kids, beautiful wife, beautiful kids, right? Should be excited. I was excited, I thought. But then I wanted like just this nervous feeling of I feel more comfortable back here. That's fucked,
Mm. That
right?
is. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so it really, that one drove it home. So now it's how, and you came back to the habits there, and that's what a lot of the program is based on. Like that's the foundation, we like to call it, right? So what is your habits? And so what is your habits in your body? What is your habits in your being, your balance, and your business, right? So what are you going to commit to every day in your body? So are you going to sweat every day? Okay. Some dudes can do that, right? What are you gonna fuel yourself with today? So we like to fuel with green smoothies. Like it
Mm-hmm.
sounds simple. It sounds like a simple thing. And like green smoothie, what? But it's just that cognitive, like every day. Okay, in the morning. Okay, before I go to work, I'm gonna drink a green smoothie. And boom. And okay, I'm gonna sweat every day, right? And in your being, you're going to meditate every day and you're going to journal, or you're going to do some cognitive work on an app that my coach has developed. So we call it the Patriot Missile game. So you you start with a trigger and you end up with a lesson and epiphany from it. So it's just diving deep every day. And then from there, in your balance, okay, you're going to text your wife and your kids a message of love, honor, and appreciation every day.
Mm. How
Sounds
do you argue with that? Sounds
right.
like sounds like a really great thing to do.
Yeah, it sounds pretty easy, but guess what? If you put in the message of why in behind it, and you and I talked about this on the discovery call, right? Like why? When was the last time you told your wife why you loved her, or why told
Mhm.
your kids why you loved them? So which is really hard to do when you don't see them for you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a couple months. So you have to get pretty creative on how to engage that way, right? And then in your business, you're going to learn something and you're going to teach something every day. Again, sounds pretty easy, but it's just getting you dialed in that you can have it all,
Yeah. You
right?
know, it's funny as you say this, it's like, and I only know this because I have a failed marriage, right? It's like there's this thing where appreciation is a factor and regret is a factor. And thinking about you being in your truck and like, here it is, you're pulling up to your house, but you have this heaviness, right? It's like when you're not living your life the way you know you should be, maybe it's not guilt, but there's just this kind of regret that you have, and then you almost don't feel lovable. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but the point is you kind of want to feel that confidence and pride that you're supporting your family, that you're there, and when you're absent, not emotionally, but just physically, it takes a conscious effort to make these moves that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So it's just everything with intent now is how I like to say it. Like live everything, every decision you make, every word that you say is with intent. And when you start doing that, you can screw off. But if you're doing it intentionally, that's one thing. If you're screwing off just to screw off, and then that leads from, okay, I'm on social media for 10 minutes. Okay, now it's 2 hours. Now it's half a day on my day off when
Mhm.
I could have been with my kids and doing something cool. That's a problem because now you're just using it for sedation.
Yeah. So tell me, like, so people that are listening and they're going like, check box, like that, like they're resonating with what you're saying. They know that they would like to up their game a bit. Does this require them to be in a certain geography? Like, how does this work? If someone's listening and they're going, where do I begin? Like, how do I even start a process like this? What do they do?
So what we're doing now is we're funneling everyone into the Freedom Formula program on Facebook, and that it's a free community where everyone can come in and just see all the tools are there. It's all free, and that's because what we find is a lot of people come in and they want to try it out, and but you know what happens with free, right?
Yeah.
It just, then they fall off. So if you're really good, if that's you and you can just go through and just dive into the work and do it on your own with no accountability, that's great. But we find that that's not most people. So the tools are there to for everyone to look. We have free webinars, we have free everything, and you can just, yes, check out the tools. But if you want to dive deeper, what we do is weekly coaching and then daily accountability through Messenger. Like, did you do the work or didn't you? Like in
Mm.
those four areas, did you ever do everything in your body, your being, your balance, and your business? Did you do all of those? So it's just a quick check in the morning, and that your group leader, they, yeah, they say, yeah, great, right? You did the work. So
Well,
we do it everywhere. And then the weekly coaching is a group. And the cool thing about the group coaching, sorry, can't talk.
mm,
The group coaching is that it's a process group, right? So if you hear someone else struggling in an area, most likely at some point something's going to resonate and you're going to learn from that person. And that's the cool part. Um, so like the one-on-one group coaching is great, but
mhm.
you don't get that um, that community and the way that the unit bonds. You know, if you see someone that's doing something super cool and you know their life is going like this and yours is like you're hiding back here, but you see this on a you know on a daily weekly basis, they're doing cool shit, you're going to start to creep and you know I want to do cool shit too, right? I want to have a side hustle.
Yeah.
You know, I want to have a, you know, what did you do for your date last week? Like, you know, they might be in the same geography, they might not, but what did you guys do for your date last week? Like,
It's so true. Like, there were I remember like as when my kids were younger, I heard a dad talking about like what would he would do. Before bedtime, he would just lay on the bed next to his daughter and just talk to her for 5 minutes, right? And it's not that I couldn't think of that or invent that, but it is nice when somebody else mentions something and you can adopt it, right? Like that, like things that are working. I do think there is something to having your comrades, right? These people that are kind of, we're all working, we're all hustling, we're all doing everything we can to like move the dial financially. But geez, like these, like what are we doing it all for? How complicated have we made life? And sometimes I think about it, maybe the people that aren't as successful, that aren't working like, like what you're describing, they're getting paid in a different way. Their compensation isn't coming in the bank account, but it's coming in a very different way, in a legacy that they're leaving. And it almost sounds like what you're saying is you don't have to like sacrifice your career. You just have to learn a new way.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and we like to call it swinging singles. Everyone wants this home run, like they're thinking, "Oh man, I got to do this massive whatever you want." But it's
Mhm.
just show up every day in small ways. And once you start chipping away at that, you feel better about yourself. You feel a little win here, feel a little win here. Hey, I meditated for 3 minutes today. Sweet. I couldn't sit for 30 seconds
Yeah.
before. So this is pretty freaking cool, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, okay, I'm once you get your dates dialed in, like we got dudes that are scheduling their dates, you know, so you know, the next quarter starts October 1st. So we have dudes that will actually sit down and schedule their dates for the next 3 months, paid for,
That's
baby,
awesome.
right? Babysitters set, everything, you know, or family members set, right? Like to take care of the kids, whatever it is, like the date is paid for. They just have to show up.
That's awesome. It's funny as you say that. There's single people that just don't do that. It's like if you're married and you have like your whole quarter figured out for dates, that goes such a long way. It makes life fun and it gives you kind of an adult time. And gee, the spouses have to love that too. Just doing something fun just for the fun of it. Um, as you were talking, I was thinking about like a lot of what you're speaking of is action taking. Um, Acknowledging that the lack of action can actually make your self-worth feel low.
Mhm.
But yet hitting a single, if you will, like what you're saying, now you just added 2 points, right? And you just continue finding these small, easy, yet effective steps, and then make some big moves like what you're talking about with planning a whole quarter's worth of dates. I think it's great. I think anyone listening to this has to find that to be an obvious win for a marriage, for a parent, for what we do in our communities.
Mhm. Yeah, and where it all starts is your body, right? And that's where if you're not moving and you're not feeling good, none of that you're not gonna be able to perform any of that other work.
Mm. Well,
So
you mentioned that you were kind of a fitness crazy person, right? I mean, it sounds like it. Like
yeah, dude, yeah,
you
100%.
were you were taking steroids. I haven't heard many people just admit to taking steroids. You're saying you're taking it performance enhancing drugs, doing everything you can in the gym.
Mhm.
Um, how does what you've learned and what you're applying now, what is the correlation to where you were to where you are now in that realm of physicality?
'Cause no one can outwork me. I'll do whatever it takes, including performance enhancing drugs at
Yeah,
that time. Now
sure.
I can step into a gym because I am aligned, right?
Yeah.
But that was my default. So I used to drink before, like on the road, I used to grab a six pack and head to the room. Like I wasn't a social person after work.
Mhm.
So that was my default for like 15 years, right? That's a long
Mhm.
freaking time to just be sitting in a room drinking beer, and then one day I snapped out of it when I couldn't tie my shoes. Actually, the elastic, the elastic at the top of your socks? Like, it I had so much it expanded so much that I cut off circulation to my foot when I was drinking a bunch of beer one.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my wake-up call there to like, "Okay, we need to lose some pounds,"
Yeah.
right?
Mine was when I tied my shoe and I got up and I could see stars. I'm going like, "Holy crap." I didn't even get punched, and I'm like seeing zingers, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So it went from that, and then I hired, like, one of the best, coaches that I know, like, in the fitness industry,
Mhm.
and she was an IFBB pro, not at the time when I hired her, but
Sure.
shortly after, right? That's the level, like, that I will go to
Mhm.
make shit happen. And now, I went from that, competed in bodybuilding, competed in powerlifting at 38 years old. Like, are you
Mhm.
kidding me? Or 39. Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like, it was good. And no, I encourage it.
Yeah.
I say that because I was using that in a way that a heroin addict would use it in the corner, in some hotel. Like,
Well, that's the thing. My takeaway, and I'm not trained in this cognitive behavior, but you see this a lot where when people have kind of a thought that's not comfortable, so it could be a hurt or an upset, or it could just be a regret. What we naturally do is we want to just cover it up with something positive, like, oh, like, yeah, I'm an asshole dad, but geez, I go to church every Sunday, like, I mean, or whatever that thing is. Or you know what, I'm very generous, like, yeah, I'm a prick 90% of the time, but I give money to the homeless. This is like the covering of what the hurt and upset is, and it's like what you're saying is no, like when you enter into something like what you're talking about, you dig into the hurt and you like address it and you make adjustments and your life begins to be in the light.
yep. Yeah, and that's all through the work of we call it the core four, so in your body, being, balance, and business. And then that Patriot missile game where we're diving in cognitively every day. Like that
Yeah.
is a requirement for the dudes once they enter into the game is dealing with the shit going in between your ears on a daily basis. And
Mm.
coming up with a lesson, an epiphany, and a way forward and an action way forward to make that happen. To make, you know, because what you think is going on in between your ears isn't even, what the trigger is. It's not even what it is. And that's a whole different conversation. But
That's awesome. So you are on the Oil and Gas Pitch podcast, and this is where really, I mean, I want you to shamelessly tell people that are out there listening. They're listening to this and they're going like, maybe there's something here, or maybe someone is very like on the depths of despair, and they're going like, I wake up, I'm heavy, I feel anxious. I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I'm wondering what the hell am I doing? It's so often that anybody in the working world that's not feeling joy, that they look at their anxiety, they look at the actions they're doing, but then they address like oh, I'm in my 40s, or I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s, or I mean, we all have all these like timetables that we judge ourselves on. As you sitting here on my podcast, where I want those people to know, what are the steps to go from misery to taking an action step to introduce themselves to you, and then ultimately learning more and experiencing this, feeling that feeling of healing, if you will, of their mishmash of a life. What is that process?
Oh, either step into the Freedom Formula on Facebook, or just hit me up, Nick Gemmell on Facebook, or Awaken Tradesman on Instagram, and on LinkedIn as well. Nick Gemmell, Gemmell, and yeah, just shoot me a line, and just jump on a call and just see if this work isn't for everybody, and I'm fine with that. And
Mhm.
it's just the way that it is, because it's not glamorous, but it's a way forward.
Is there any way that you could, and I know you've got stuff to do. You mentioned that yeah, and I'm glad you made this. Thank you very much. I had my own technology issues today, but I was going to ask you, if we took a day in the life before this philosophy, and then we took your, like, you've been out of town for quite some time in the last, I mean, you and I've been talking, you've been in the middle of some job site somewhere for a couple months now. What's the difference? Like, what would we notice?
So, like at work, so I would get up, um, I would lay there for a little bit, and then I would go to work, and then I would come back, drink a bunch of beer, and go to bed. That was my life for over 10, 12 years. I think that probably went, where I didn't want to go golfing, didn't after work, didn't want to go for dinner, right? That's a long time. And now I wake up in the morning, I meditate right off the bat, right off the bat. I drink a green smoothie. I text my kids at like 6 a.m. They're still sleeping, but I still text them, right? And then someone that's lacking in my life, I send them a message, and or if it's someone that's of interest at the time, and or just mom and dad, right? And then I do a little hotel workout to get the blood moving, and then I start my day
Hmm.
after I do that Patriot missile game as well. So I clear my thoughts, any stories, any shit that was going through my ears, and now I can make the morning meeting, and I can be present during the day. And this has taken a while to get to that point where I can actually step that door at 6:30 in the morning, or out the door at 6:30 in the morning, and be present.
Hmm.
And that was the hardest part. So even though I was doing the work before, at the start, yeah, it takes some time. But you can't be hard on yourself. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, I heard one. I was listening to a podcast, John Cheplack, and he was talking about people who want to wake up in the morning. It's the morning isn't where the problem is. It's like what happened the night before.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like if you think about it, if you're going to say like, hey, I'm going to wake up at 6 in the morning, maybe that means you need to be in bed at 10, right?
yeah,
And so,
yeah,
what I
yeah,
love about what you're saying is it's like it's the whole lifestyle part of what you're choosing that's allowing you to create this consistency in these action items, and maybe meet some really great people like yourself, where you know you can sometimes, confession might not be the right word, but sometimes you just need to know that you're not crazy, or that you need a new angle to look at things, and that camaraderie that it sounds like the program brings in, where you meet other people, could help you navigate life a lot better also.
yeah. No, 100%, 100%. And then once you got people that are aligned with making their own 90-day targets, and then creating a life based on their targets and their values, you have people that are lit on fire. and it's
Mhm.
and it's pretty cool to see a bunch of dudes that are dealing with the shit in between their ears, and actually like pulling off cool shit. Because how many wives, you, you tell your wife you want to go do something cool, I'm gonna pull this off, and she just looks at you like with yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna do shit, buddy, right? And that's a lot of people's lives, because they won't pull the trigger. Well, in this program, you're gonna pull the trigger, because I'm standing there every week. Okay, what did you do to
Mm,
pull yourself forward this week. You said you were going to do this, and that's a cool. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. You told me to do it, and that's why I love this style of coaching and this program. Is it's you. If Warren wanted to say at the beginning of this that you wanted to you wanted to start an oil and gas or podcast, and
yeah.
it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road, you still haven't, well, I'm going to be lighting a fire under your ass, and you would be sitting here doing it, right? That's one example. So
That's awesome. And you know, as I think about this and I look at what you've accomplished so far, and I know we're about to close out. Is there anything that you could give us just to give us kind of a wide range of like some of your clients, like what like where they were when they started, and then because we all want the result, right? Like we all want to like if someone told me you could staple a piece of bologna to my shoulder and make me lose 10 pounds, I would do it because it'd be worth like the pain, right? So tell us just like a little bit about people who start this process, they go through it, like where do you see them shift? Like how quickly do you start seeing them come to you and go like, holy crap, you won't believe this?
the last couple of actually, so one project manager from Calgary, and well, one ex project manager, I won't lie, he lost his job a couple years ago, right? And but now he's getting on fire again to actually pull the trigger on that type of work again, but it was all just based on stories, right?
Mm,
We've been working
hmm.
together for just over or just about 6 months now, so it's pretty cool to see. So not long, another guy, he started his own scaffolding business during COVID, like during COVID, started
Yeah.
a scaffolding business. Like it's been in between his ears forever, right? Working up in Fort McMurray, and through the work, like no, like this is I want to be home with my kids. Like I'm gonna do this, okay? And not worried, not stories of, oh, I can't do this because of COVID, I can't do this because of this and that, and just actually pulling the trigger. So that's cool. And then we got another guy. He was actually used to be in a biker gang, and
Wow.
yeah, and now talks about feelings and facts of his life. So,
That's
and an exterior guy, right? Like pulling cool shit off. So,
yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. And if you're listening and whether your life just feels messy from a personal side or your career just is not like it doesn't something just doesn't feel right, you know, just like if you put your hand over a hot stove, you would know like there's danger there. Pay attention to how you feel, and then go down this rabbit hole, if you will, to find out what are these guys doing that is allowing them to like take all of that and get into what factually is going on and just judging it by the facts. And that can help you even with how you're treated by others. What's really true? Like what is the reality? And then there's how you feel about it. And I love that. Thank you, Nick Gemmell. I think this is a great episode. Definitely not the norm. You really, this is ed. How could it be that talking about love and feelings and marriage is edgy?
right. I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm still working around that one.
Yeah, so this was edgy. Like we're trailblazing right now. So if you guys have a company that you'd love to bring on the Oil and Gas Pitch podcast, reach out to us. I'm your host, Warren Spiewak. Thank you, Nick Gemmell. I'm going to make sure all of your information is in our show notes. And I know you and I will be talking some more soon. So thank you. And now a word from Alex on the OGGN's upcoming events. Out.